Hello everyone, it's great seeing you again, and thanks for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, hosting today's show once again. First graphic we have, if I can get it unstuck here, is the hazardous weather graphic, which, let's see, get the cursor in the right spot. There we go. Now it'll go. There we are. Let's start with the Alaska range there. That's a wind advisory, which is out until noon Monday. Actually, it's from now until noon Monday for Saturday night through tomorrow night and into, again, midday Monday. So quite an time frame there. And looking for winds gusting over 60 miles per hour, around 65 miles an hour from the south-southeast for the Alaska range. And northern Kuskokwim Valley, that area is over toward the Alaska range. And out to the west for the Nunivak Island area and also for the Kuskokwim Delta, that's a blizzard warning out, and that's from 1 a.m. tonight, Sunday morning until noon tomorrow on Sunday for blizzard conditions due to 4 inches of snow, possibly 4 inches of snow falling, and then the strong winds 30 gusts, 50 miles an hour. That'll create visibility in some areas, especially along the coast and also over the inland areas, possibly down to near zero as far as or whiteout conditions possibly. And then there's a winter storm warning out for St. Lawrence Island and the Greater Nome area there in the Bering Strait coast. And that's for the similar conditions to the Kuskokwim Delta. Looking for several inches of snow there, 2 to 4 inches to be exact in the forecast, with winds gusting to 60 miles an hour. Now create similar conditions as a blizzard warning would, with near whiteout conditions and blowing snow at times. And then the yellow shaded area there for the Yukon Delta and eastern Norton Sound there of Norton Bay, Nulato Hills area. That's a winter weather advisory for snow and blowing snow, but the conditions aren't severe as in the winter storm warning area there for St. Lawrence Island, or the blizzard warning for the Kuskokwim Delta and Nunivak Island. And that's about it as far as the watches, warnings, or there are no watches, just the advisories and warnings out for around the state. So moving on to the satellite imagery, you can see a front with a fairly strong storm, very low pressure under 940 millibars there south of the Aleutians, and that front pushing eastward and northward, bringing fairly strong winds into the Pribilof Islands, eastern Aleutians, and the western Alaska Peninsula today, with snow trending toward rain for Unalaska and the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, and temperatures just above freezing at St. Paul with snow going on there, or at St. Paul, St. George, with snow going on, and winds, though, gusting upwards of we'll start with Unalaska. They're seeing winds gusting to 52 miles an hour at mid-afternoon today, while Cold Bay, just to the east there, had 56 mile an hour wind gusts. Up to the north, St. George Island, 60 miles an hour on the wind gusts there. And AKwx Island had a peak wind gust of 75 miles per hour, so pretty active front there. And then it breaks out, lighter winds, looks like some clearing occurring over the central Aleutians, Adak and Atka. And kind of some clouds and a weak trough here over south central Alaska and the North Gulf Coast, but about a third of an inch of rain. Let's see, to Cordova today. Yakutat had about a quarter of an inch, and there's mostly rain in both locations there. And about possibly a half inch of snow falling, though, around Seward, with light snow falling at times today there, but with light precipitation amounts, some light snow in the northern Cook Inlet, Turnagain Arm area, and possibly the Chugach Mountains. As well as also out over the Seward Peninsula. Snow fell the entire day today with, I believe, Nome seeing anywhere from 1 to 2 inches around there with, again, light snow falling throughout much of the day today. Otherwise, kind of areas of light snow there from Norton Sound up across the Seward Peninsula, a little bit in the northwest interior, but pretty light amounts there, not too significant. On the rainfall or the snowfall amounts. And looking at the chart today, you can see the tight gradient in advance of that front, bringing the strong winds, as I mentioned, to the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, and up to the Pribilof Islands. And less gradient with the front north of the Aleutians there, the 937 millibar low, but the gradient associated with it over the Aleutians is not that tight. So just areas of rain and showers and breezy conditions, but it really tightens up back to the west and north, as you can see there. And so stronger winds will be coming into the Aleutians as that low slowly moves, but it'll be slowly weakening as well. Otherwise, mostly dry with variable clouds over interior Alaska today. There was some fog up along the eastern Arctic coast. And then a weak trough, both the surface and aloft, brought the precipitation in the form of rain or rain and snow mixed or just plain snow, depending on elevation and latitude, which really tapered off. I don't think too much got east of Yakutat there. I don't think anything got into Elephant Cove. And the Panhandle is basically dry with partly to mostly cloudy skies and fairly light winds. And for tonight, it should remain that way there. Variably cloudy skies. Some areas see some clearing, others cloudy, but the winds will be light and it will be precipitation free from Dixon Entrance all the way up to possibly Yakutat. And still, we have a weak trough lifting northeastward across the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, as well as south central Alaska. And so scattered snow showers or rain and snow showers in the shaded areas there throughout the night tonight. And then winds on the increase, Kodiak Island, but precipitation holding off until tomorrow. And definitely looking at gale force winds, some cases possibly areas of storm force winds in advance of the front, with that low lifting up right over Adak and Atka. So winds will be light and variable there, but look for periods of light rain. And pretty gusty winds approaching Nikolsky there from Atka over to Unmak Island. And look for the snow and blowing snow to increase along the southwest coast as well as St. Lawrence Island area. And then for Sunday, we're looking at rain, heavy at times with gusty winds from the southeast for Kodiak Island. That's spreading up to the southern Kenai Peninsula with temperatures on the upward swing, as well as the freezing levels, snowfall levels. So mixed precipitation a little farther to the north there into northern Cook Inlet, but amounts will be light, especially in the downslope areas off the Chugach Range. And banking up along the Alaska Peninsula. It shouldn't be too heavy there, but mostly on the western slopes. But snow and blowing snow will end for the Kuskokwim Delta as temperatures rise above freezing. But for the Yukon Delta, look for snow and blowing snow, St. Lawrence Island and the southern Seward Peninsula of the Bering Strait. Northern eastern interior stay dry with light winds and remnant moisture from that trough. Could bring a little bit of light precipitation to the Yakutat area, maybe along the north coast of the Panhandle. Otherwise, not much change out there through tomorrow with variably cloudy skies, high pressure really in control of the area. And that low over the Bering Sea, pretty gusty winds there for the Aleutians out of the west with it lifting northward, so those winds will be increasing throughout the day with numerous showers of rain or rain and snow mix trending towards snow farther to the west. And for Monday, that low continues to lift northward and weaken, and several troughs rotating around it will bring increasingly colder temperatures, snowfall levels down to sea level for Shimi and Attu, and maybe a little above sea level for Kiska Island. Adak and Atka look for showers, mostly in the form of rain. And up to the Pribilof, you have some showers approaching from the south late in the day. Kind of a break there for the southwest coast, Alaska Peninsula. That front really breaks up over the interior with just some remnant snow showers remaining by the afternoon on Monday with maybe a little bit clearing and holds together a little bit better. So look for increasing precipitation for the North Gulf Coast from Kodiak Island, swinging over possibly as far east as Yakutat, but the Panhandle pretty dry and with light winds as well as the eastern and northern interior. Lows for tonight, below zero north of the Alaska Range there, 5 to 15 below all the way up to the Arctic coast. In the teens out to the west, St. Lawrence Island, and then mid-30s for the Pribilofs, lower 40s with the southerly flow for the Aleutians and western Alaska Peninsula, mid-20s Kodiak Island, and 25 to 35 for the southeast coast. Highs for tomorrow, south central Alaska, 25 to 32, warmer along the Kenai Peninsula coast, near 40 for Kodiak, northeast Bristol Bay. Lower 30s northern Panhandle to lower 40s along the coast and to the south. And single numbers up in the Tanana Valley, a little below zero from the Yukon Flats across the Brooks Range, North Slope, most of the Arctic coast, and 35 to 40 for Bristol Bay, the Alaska Peninsula, and the 30s for the remainder of the southwest coastal areas. And the lows for Monday morning, again from Northway Toke up to possibly Eagle and the Yukon Flats, North Slope, Arctic coast, below zero, 5 to 15 below. Around 0, a little above for the central interior. Mid-30s toward Bristol Bay, 20s south central Alaska, and 25 to 35 for the Panhandle.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Good morning. Marginal VFR up along the Arctic coast and most of the North Slope, Brooks Range into the northern central interior, mostly VFR. Marginal VFR a little more prevalent there from the Bering Strait, southern Seward Peninsula, and the Lotto Hills across the Yukon River on down along and south and east of the Alaska Range, all the Gulf of Alaska and into the Panhandle. Marginal VFR and a lot of IFR out to the west. Bering Sea right up to the southwest coast and Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula, reaching southwest Kodiak Island and most of the Aleutians IFR. And then for the afternoon, we'll call it central western Aleutians, IFR, and then the Unmak, Unalaska Islands, as well as the Pribilos and the Alaska Peninsula marginal. And marginal VFR as the IFR slides eastward and northeastward across Kodiak Island. And tomorrow afternoon will extend from Fognak Island into southern Cook Inlet across the Iliamna Lake area, southern Kuskokwim Valley, up across the southern Kenai Peninsula and Prince William Sound, and most of the Yukon Delta and IFR, say, into Nome, St. Lawrence Island. But north of the Bering Strait, Kotzebue Sound, Shishmaref, maybe Buckland, all of the North Slope and the Arctic coast will be VFR. Just a little bit of marginal VFR there from the Yukon Flats up to the southern slopes of the eastern Brooks Range, and some VFR showing up, northern Cook Inlet, Susitna, Matanuska Valley, marginal for the southeast coast. And then Monday morning, IFR, all of the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, eastward to about Yakutat, IFR, northern Panhandle, marginal VFR for the remainder of the area over there, down to Dixon Entrance, IFR, Gulf of Alaska to eastern Kodiak Island, and then behind the boundary there, frontal boundary, Bering Sea, it breaks out to some patchy areas of VFR, improved conditions, then back to the IFR, western southwest Bering down to Adak and Atka. IFR there and across the southwest mountains there, Togiak Bay up along the southwest coast, most of the Yukon Delta, St. Lawrence Island through the Bering Strait to the northwest coast, and Kotzebue. And for the afternoon Monday, eastern interior, north of the Alaska Range, pretty well VFR. We've got some marginal VFR extending eastward along and just north of the central Brooks Range, North Slope area. But to the south, all the Tanana Valley VFR, and eastern or the central and northeast Copper River Basin VFR, northern Cook Inlet, same thing VFR, which may probably include at least the southern Susitna Valley and western, the Matanuska Valley. Let's see, out west there, IFR again along the southwest coast and the narrow band extending in from just cutting across Togiak there, southern Kuskokwim Valley, into the western Alaska Range and spilling into western Cook Inlet. VFR for the Pribilos, and not too bad all the way down to the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, Bristol Bay. More IFR with the next storm coming into the central Aleutians and just about all of the southwest Bering Sea and North Gulf Coast, east side of Kodiak, IFR to Yakutat. And and it passes tomorrow, Sunday. Both Anatuvik and Natigan for the Brooks Range look pretty good. VFR in the forecast the entire day. Lake Clark and Merrill, we'll go with Lake Clark, could become IFR, especially on the eastern entrance into the afternoon. But I think Merrill will stay marginal throughout the day. And rainy, marginal VFR throughout the day tomorrow at times, most of the time windy. Marginal VFR, south side VFR out the north entrance into the valley. And Isabel, marginal VFR, lowest conditions, southern entrance. And Mentasta, I think will be VFR for the day Sunday. And then Tanita, marginal VFR, west side better, VFR. And for Portage, IFR, Choku and White look pretty marginal. And for the freezing levels, 2,000 feet there, just southern Dixon entrance, and 2,000 to 4,000 feet there for the Alaska Peninsula. At the surface, a little farther north than today, up towards St. Matthew Island. And then cutting across northern Bristol Bay, southern Cook Inlet, hugging the North Gulf Coast, and then cutting across the Panhandle. Very familiar pattern there. And for icing, with a weakening front coming in, icing will be weakening, but still look for considerable moderate rime icing, Kodiak Island, especially in the upslope areas of the terrain there as it cuts across Bristol Bay, Southwest Mountains, and Lotto Hills, St. Lawrence Island, Seward Peninsula, and kind of a widespread area of possible elevated icing potential there for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians of rime or mixed varieties. Jet stream, 70 to 75 knots coming over the top of a flat ridge with a big low out over the Bering Sea. And 9 and 3 and jump to turbulence. Widespread moderate chop, south central Alaska, right up to the Seward Peninsula, Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder, and joining me once again is Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska, based up at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Eric, welcome back to the program.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
And once again, you brought some wonderful satellite pictures to show us and do a little show and tell about. It's just amazing. I can get lost in satellite pictures all day. What did you bring today?
Right. Well, weather satellites, what are they good for? Yeah. Of course, there's the pretty pictures that they bring us. You know, we've got a picture here from April of 2012. Okay. The Sumi NPP satellite, it's what they call a polar orbiter, which means it covers Alaska because we're near the pole. Beautiful image. You can see a storm off of southeast Alaska, the sea ice along the Bering Sea up into the Arctic. A really nice picture, and this is important because it allows a forecaster to see where the storms are, where the ice is, where the clear areas are. You need to know where the weather is now if you're going to forecast it into the future. Exactly. So satellites give us these good pictures. This is called surveillance of the weather. And you know, that same satellite also has another picture from a little more recently, August of 2014, Tropical Storm Iselle bearing down on the Hawaiian Islands. Hawaii doesn't get hit by a whole lot of tropical storms or hurricanes. Sometimes it does. And here's a picture from the same satellite, the Sumi NPP Polar Orbiter. It shows Tropical Storm Iselle approaching the Hawaiian Islands from the southeast. You can see the storm swirling away there, and then there's the Hawaiian Islands. This is a tropical storm, not quite as strong as a hurricane because we don't see the eye wall in there. This is still a serious weather system. And all of this information comes just from that satellite picture. It's so much information, and it's wonderful to look at. You see the beauty and the awe of nature right there depicted in that weather satellite. We call it a polar orbiter because the satellite flies high over the globe. Maybe we could look here at we happen to bring the planet Earth with us. This is our satellite. A polar orbit flies really close to the Earth, maybe 800 kilometers over the Earth, and goes up over the pole and then back down, and then the Earth spins under the satellite as it goes by. That's in contrast to the geostationary birds, which are much further out. And they don't view Alaska quite as well. So we love those polar orbiter satellites here in Alaska.
So when we're a lot closer, we get much better details and imagery and an idea of a better maybe position of what's going on when it's passing right over Alaska or right over Hawaii.
Yes, exactly right. The polar orbiter gives such a good view of places like Alaska. And because it's close to the planet, there's another aspect of satellites in the polar orbit that is helpful for weather forecasting. It's an aspect that's maybe not as immediately obvious as the pretty pictures that we see. And that is the capacity for the satellite to produce what's called a sounding. That is finding the vertical profile of temperature and moisture in the atmosphere. We've all heard of weather balloons. Weather balloons are launched here in Alaska twice a day at a number of airports, everywhere from Barrow to St. Paul Island to Kodiak, Anchorage and Fairbanks, Yakutat, a number of places. Launch these balloons, and we've got a picture of a balloon being launched at an airport, and the balloon goes up. It's pulling a little package, an instrument package with it that reports temperature, pressure, humidity data back, and we use that information to help feed what are called numerical weather prediction models.
The models.
The models, right. It's a mouthful, so we just call it the models. And these computer simulations, these models, they're computer programs that simulate the motion of the atmosphere. Well, how does a model know what the future will be like? You have to tell the model what things are like now. And you give it all kinds of information, including information from these satellite sounders. Very important. Just how important are they? We have a comparatively recent study that really brings home, and this is Superstorm Sandy. We have a track image here of the track of Hurricane Sandy. It was down in the Caribbean around Cuba, and then it moved north over the ocean, offshore of the eastern seaboard, and then at the last minute, Sandy made what's called the left hook. It turned hard to the left and slammed into New Jersey. It was a major problem for the mid-Atlantic states, a calamity. It fused with another weather system and became known, this is not an official title, but Superstorm Sandy. It was quite the weather event. Well, the modelers, after the event, there's a group of modelers in Europe. They have a very good model, a frustratingly good model if you're the Americans trying to pursue their excellence. They reran their model afterwards in what's called a data denial study, where they kept everything the same. So this is 6 months after Sandy, but they went back, they reran the same model, they fed the model the same initial conditions, that is telling the model, okay, here's where we think Sandy is, down near Cuba in the Caribbean. Everything was the same as it was in the real forecast, except they didn't let the model know.
No satellite data.
No satellite data. So we're going to put that over here, no satellite data for you. The resulting forecast 5 days out, back when the real Sandy was happening and the model had the satellite data, the forecast was pretty good. We've got a graphic here on the left side. We show the forecast of where Sandy would be, and that's the red bullseye on the left. It's just south of where it actually wound up hitting. Not a bad forecast from this computer simulation, 120 hours out. On the right, you see the same model, but it didn't have the satellite data to help it understand things. And the storm is way offshore. It misses. The forecast is more accurate when the model has the satellite data. So that's the idea today we want to convey is weather satellites. They're important because they show us the pictures of where storms are. We see good examples of this. Yeah, the surveillance right now, it's great to look at those pictures. And in addition, behind the scenes, maybe not immediately obvious, but the models have to have that satellite data for them to be good forecasts. And then a meteorologist uses that information to help everyone with the forecast of where the storms will be in the future.
That is fascinating information that we can look at, see where things have been, because you can't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. That's that old adage there. But seeing that satellites are actually helping us move forward in the weather information system is pretty amazing stuff.
You bet.
And if you want to check out Eric's satellite images that he's been talking about, whether that's something from today or last week or even much further back in Alaska history, you can easily do that yourself. Go to www.gina.alaska.edu and you can find those images there. Eric, thanks so much for joining us once again. And again, we will join you hopefully again soon for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts, where you'll tell us more really cool information about the satellites over our heads in Alaska. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis, not too much different from yesterday, with the south and southeast winds coming in, especially along the Yukon Delta coast there, Cape Romanzoff, southward, more southeasterly. Look for there won't be much expansion of the ice going on. In fact, it should melt back a little bit and begin to shift more east, or from southeast to northwest in the direction there into the first of next week. And then for the coastal water forecast, pretty light southerly winds for the Panhandle tomorrow, 10 knots out of the south, 15 on the north coast, 8 to 9 foot seas. And even lighter winds there for Clarence Strait, south 5, 2 foot seas, and variable winds, 10 knots for the central northern inside waters. And seas are pretty slight at 2 feet or less. And then for Monday, things kick up a little bit with southeast small craft advisory level winds there along the coast at 25 knots from the southeast, 30 knots on the north coast, sea 17 feet. Clarence Strait, southeast 20, seas 4 feet. And central northern inside waters, southeast 15, seas 3 to 4 feet. Prince William Sound, southeast tomorrow at 15 knots with 3 foot seas for Sunday. And the North Gulf Coast, small craft advisories with the strongest winds on the western North Gulf Coast out of the southeast at 30 knots with 10 foot seas. Even stronger for the Barren Islands, southeast 40 knots, and high-end gales for Kamishak Bay out of the east 45 knots. Southern Cook Inlet, northeast at 30 for small craft advisories, but just northeast at 15 for Northern Cook Inlet. And for Monday, northeast 20 knots, Cook Inlet, 4 to 5 foot seas, and winds back down under gale force for Kamishak Bay, east at 30, southeast 30 for the Barren Islands, 16 foot seas. And small craft advisories for the North Gulf Coast, southeast 25 to 30 knots. Small craft advisories, Prince William Sound, east winds 25 knots with 6 foot seas. Kodiak Island, coming up, pretty windy day there, as well as Bristol Bay and Alaska Peninsula. Start out east side of Kodiak, southeast 45 knots for the winds, 21 foot seas. And then from Castle Cape to Sitkinak, we've got south 45 knots. Storm warnings for the Bristol Bay area, southeast winds 50 knots, and minimum gales for Chillicothe Strait out of the southeast. And the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula, south 40 knots, seas 10 feet, south 30 knots on the bottom side there, Pacific side with 21 foot seas. And then for Monday, southeast 35 knots, gales still going for the, or gale warnings for the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula. Southeast 30 knots for the Bristol Bay area, small craft advisories, 25 knot east-southeast winds for Kodiak Island. And for the Unalaska Island, south wind, or for the eastern Aleutians, both islands there, south 40 to 45 knots with seas running 18 to 42 feet. And for the central Aleutians, southwest 40 to 50 knots, storm warning south side there with 42-foot seas, and then northwest 35 knots from Chitka, Kiska, Shimianatu. And then for Monday, for Shimianatu and Kiska, northwest 35 knots, Samchitka Island, west 35 knots, and then southwest 30 to 40 knots for Adak and Atka, seas 13 to 29 feet. And then for Unalaska Island, south 40 knots. Unmak Island, south 35 to 45 knots. And for the southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, southeast, pretty brisk at 45 knots. And high-end gales also for the Yukon Delta coast out of the east at 45. Storm warnings for St. Matthew Island, northeast 50 knots, southeast 30 for the Pribilofs. Northeast sustained 40-knot winds for St. Lawrence Island. Monday, east 25 knots for St. Lawrence Island. Small craft advisories for the southwest coast. Southeast 25 to 30 knots. Seas up to 12 feet, mostly south of Nunivak Island. East 30 knots for St. Matthew Island. Southeast 30 knots for the Pribilofs. The seas around 20 feet. And for the central eastern Beaufort Sea coast, northeast winds 10 to 15 knots, picking up to 20 knots there on the west side. And then brisk wind advisories from Cape Beaufort all the way down to Wales, northeast 25 to 30 knots or so. And that holds through Monday. Wales to Cape Beaufort, northeast, 30 knots. And now 30-knot winds probably up to Point Lay for the brisk wind advisories. Central coast, central and east side, actually east at 15. For tonight, we've got blizzard warning coming into the Kuskokwim Delta for several inches of snow, winds gusting 55 miles an hour. Winter storm warning now for the Yukon Delta and St. Lawrence Island and the southern coast of the Seward Peninsula. And that storm moves in, bringing warmer temperatures and precipitation into southern and southwest Alaska with the blizzard warnings, St. Lawrence Island.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.